Hello, and welcome to our podcast, where we'll be discussing the skills that young people need to thrive in the post-COVID world. I'm your host, and I'm joined today by two expert guests. Can you both introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Peter. I'm a life coach and speaker, and I work with young people to help them develop the skills and mindset they need to succeed.
And I'm Maria. I'm a researcher, and I specialize in studying the impact of technology on mental health and well-being.
Great, thank you both for being here today. As we all know, the past couple of years have been incredibly challenging, and young people in particular have faced a lot of uncertainty and disruption. Peter, can you talk a bit about what you've seen in your work with young people in the post-COVID world?
Sure. I think one of the biggest challenges young people are facing right now is a lack of direction and purpose. With so much uncertainty about the future, it's hard for them to feel like they have a clear path forward.
And I think another big challenge is the impact of technology on social connections. With so much of our lives moving online, it's easy to feel disconnected and isolated.
Those are both really important points. So in this podcast, we'll be discussing the skills that young people need to not just survive, but thrive in the post-COVID world. We'll be focusing on resilience, communication, creativity, mindfulness, and adaptability. Let's start with resilience. Peter, can you talk a bit about what resilience means, and why it's important?
Absolutely. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from adversity or difficult situations. It's a combination of mental and emotional toughness, adaptability, and positive thinking. And it's important because we all face challenges in life, and resilience is what helps us overcome them and come out stronger on the other side.
That's a great point. But how can young people develop resilience? It's not something that comes naturally to everyone.
That's true. Developing resilience takes practice and intentional effort. One important way to develop resilience is to reframe challenges as opportunities for growth. Instead of seeing a setback as a failure, for example, you can view it as a chance to learn and improve. Another important aspect of resilience is having a support network. Whether it's friends, family, or a coach or mentor, having people who believe in you and support you can make a big difference.
Those are great tips. Maria, from a psychological perspective, can you talk a bit about how resilience is related to mental health and well-being?
Sure, resilience is closely linked to mental health and well-being because it helps us cope with stress and adversity. People who are more resilient tend to have lower rates of anxiety and depression, and they're better able to manage their emotions and maintain a positive outlook even in difficult times.
That's really interesting. So it sounds like resilience is not just important for overcoming challenges, but for maintaining good mental health as well.
Exactly. And the good news is that resilience is something that can be developed and strengthened over time. With practice, anyone can become more resilient and better equipped to handle whatever life throws their way.
That's a great point to end on for this topic. We'll proceed to be discussing the next skill on our list: communication.
We've already talked about adaptability and resilience, and now we're moving on to communication. Maria, can you tell us why communication is so important?
Sure, communication is a vital skill in every aspect of life, from personal relationships to work and school. Being able to communicate effectively allows us to express ourselves, build relationships, and work collaboratively with others.
That's a great point, and I imagine that, with so much of our communication happening online these days, it's even more important to be able to communicate clearly and effectively.
Absolutely. Online communication can be tricky because there are so many potential misunderstandings. Without face-to-face interaction, it's easy for messages to be misinterpreted or for tone to be lost.
So, what can young people do to improve their communication skills?
Well, one important thing is to practice active listening. That means really paying attention to what the other person is saying, and asking questions to clarify anything that's unclear.
That's a great point. And what about written communication, like emails or messages? How can young people improve in that area?
Good writing skills are also essential for effective communication. One tip is to always proofread your messages or emails before sending them, to make sure they're clear and free of errors. It's also important to be mindful of tone and to be respectful, even in written communication.
Those are all great tips. And I imagine that practicing good communication skills can also help with things like conflict resolution and negotiation.
Absolutely. Being able to communicate effectively can help prevent misunderstandings and conflicts, and it can also help find solutions that work for everyone involved.
We've already talked about adaptability, resilience, and communication. Now, we're moving on to creativity. Peter, can you start us off by explaining why creativity is so important?
Sure. Creativity is the ability to come up with new and original ideas, and to think outside the box. In today's rapidly changing world, being creative is more important than ever. It allows us to solve problems in innovative ways, and to adapt to new situations.
That's a great point, and I imagine that with so many jobs and industries being disrupted by technology, creativity is becoming an even more valuable skill.
Definitely. With AI and automation taking over many routine tasks, it's the creative skills that will really set people apart in the job market. Whether it's coming up with new ideas for products or services, or finding innovative ways to market them, creativity is key.
So, how can young people develop their creative skills?
Well, there are many ways to do that. One important thing is to practice divergent thinking, which means generating as many ideas as possible, without worrying about whether they're good or not. This helps to develop the brain's creative muscles.
That's a great tip. And what about things like art, music, or writing? Can those activities help young people develop their creative skills?
Absolutely. Engaging in creative hobbies can be a great way to foster creativity. These activities allow us to explore different ideas and perspectives, and to think more broadly about the world around us.
That's a great point. And I imagine that creativity can also help with things like problem solving and decision making.
Definitely. Creative thinking allows us to approach problems in new and innovative ways, and to come up with solutions that might not have been obvious otherwise.
That's a great note to end on. We've talked about adaptability, resilience, communication, and creativity. Now, we're wrapping things up with mindfulness. Maria, can you start us off by explaining what mindfulness is?
Sure. Mindfulness is the practice of being present and fully engaged in the moment, without judgment or distraction. It's about paying attention to our thoughts, feelings, and physical sensations, and learning to accept them as they are.
That sounds great. And why is mindfulness important, especially in today's world?
Well, mindfulness has been shown to have many benefits for mental health, such as reducing stress, anxiety, and depression. And in a world where we're constantly bombarded with distractions and information overload, mindfulness can help us stay centered and focused.
That's a great point. And how can young people practice mindfulness?
There are many ways to practice mindfulness, such as meditation, deep breathing, yoga, or even just taking a walk in nature. The important thing is to find a practice that works for you, and to make it a habit.
That's great advice. And how can mindfulness help with things like productivity and creativity?
Well, when we're fully present and focused, we're better able to engage with the task at hand and to come up with new and innovative ideas. Mindfulness can also help us stay calm and centered in the face of challenges, which can be invaluable in the workplace.
That's a great point. And I imagine that mindfulness can also help with things like communication and relationships.
Definitely. When we're present and fully engaged in our interactions with others, we're better able to listen and to communicate effectively. And when we're less reactive and more accepting of our own thoughts and feelings, we're less likely to project them onto others and cause conflict.
We've talked about interesting aspects of post-COVID development of young people, such as resilience and communication, and now we're moving on to adaptability. Maria, can you start us off by explaining what adaptability means?
Sure. Adaptability is the ability to adjust to new and changing situations. It's about being flexible and open-minded, and being able to think on your feet.
That's a great point. And why is adaptability important, especially in today's world?
Well, the COVID-19 pandemic has shown us just how quickly things can change. Jobs, industries, and entire economies have been upended, and those who are able to adapt are the ones who are most likely to succeed.
That's a great point. And how can young people develop their adaptability skills?
There are many ways to develop adaptability, such as taking on new challenges, seeking out diverse experiences, and learning to embrace uncertainty. It's also important to develop a growth mindset, which means viewing challenges and setbacks as opportunities for growth and learning.
That's great advice. And how can adaptability help with things like career success and personal growth?
Well, in today's fast-paced and ever-changing world, those who are able to adapt are the ones who are most likely to succeed. And when we're able to embrace change and uncertainty, we open ourselves up to new opportunities and experiences that can help us grow both personally and professionally.
That's a great point. And I imagine that adaptability can also help with things like communication and problem solving.
Definitely. When we're adaptable, we're better able to navigate different social and cultural contexts, and to come up with creative solutions to problems.
And that's a wrap on our podcast about the skills young people need to succeed in the post-COVID world. We've covered a lot of ground today, from resilience and communication to creativity, mindfulness, and adaptability. Maria and Peter, do you have any final thoughts to share?
I just want to emphasize how important it is for young people to develop these skills. The world is changing so rapidly, and those who are able to adapt and thrive in this new environment are the ones who will succeed.
Absolutely. And I also want to encourage young people to be patient with themselves. These skills take time and practice to develop, so don't be discouraged if you don't see results right away.
That's great advice. And for our listeners who are interested in developing these skills, what can they do?
Well, one thing they can do is seek out new experiences and challenges, whether it's through travel, volunteering, or learning a new skill. They can also work on developing a growth mindset, which means embracing challenges and setbacks as opportunities for learning and growth.
And don't forget the importance of self-care and mental health. It's hard to develop these skills if you're not taking care of yourself. So make sure to prioritize your mental and physical health, and don't be afraid to seek out support when you need it.
That's a great point. And with that, we want to thank our guests Maria and Peter for joining us today and sharing their expertise.
Thank you both so much. Your insights were incredibly valuable.
And to our listeners, we hope you found this podcast interesting. It has been developed in the framework of CHEER Initiative, aiming to provide equal opportunities for young people who are weakened by mental health problems, which is co-funded by the Erasmus Plus program of the European Union. The accompanying goal is to improve the well-being of young people, their mental, physical, and social condition. The European Commission's support for the production of this podcast does not constitute endorsement of the contents, which reflects the views only of the authors, and the Commission cannot be held responsible for any use, which may be made of the information contained therein.